Please welcome to the stage Nungai Warren Mundine, Tania Mihailuk, Gary Johns.
Hello.
And Nick Cater.
I accidentally got this book. It's really, really good.
One share
At all good bookstores at a reasonable price.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm Nick Cater. The last panel I ever chaired at CPAC. Hello. What's going on? Probably yours, Gary. The last panel I chaired at CPAC, I don't know. Hands up, you were there. The last panel I chaired at CPAC. It was the most exciting panel of the last CPAC.
There's only one comedian on this stage.
Because of the contribution made by the audience. So, look, thank you, and it shows that we have arguments. This one's called From Left to Right. So, which way? Who's sitting on the far right here? Must be you, Warren. But the theme of this really is people, and I'm not going to do much talking, I want to introduce you guys. People who have made a political journey, as it were, from left to right. Let's start with you, Gary. You were a solid member of the Bob Hawke and Paul Keating government for quite some time, weren't you?
Well, I thought I was. I was fairly disciplined at the time. But look, my journey happened from left to right way before I was ever elected to caucus, but I just didn't tell them. But it was a moment in time when Hawke and Keating were sensible centrists. There'd been a lot of discussion in the 1980s about not just dividing the pie. We actually thought about growing the pie. And there are all sorts of reasons why that discussion arose, but that team came together in the early 1980s because there was a lot of intellectual discussion behind it. I don't think that's there anymore. So I wasn't so much out of place. Subsequently, I certainly am way out of place.
Now, Tania Mihailuk, for people who don't know you, we know you as a member of the New South Wales Legislative Council. What was your journey? You started with the Labor Party, and then what happened?
Oh, we would need a couple of days for what happened, Nick. Look, I have to say, for me, I spent, and for those who don't know me, my name's Tania Mihailuk. I'm now a member of One Nation, and I'm very proud to be a member of One Nation. For me, this was, I spent 27 years in the Labor Party, and it's interesting, Gary, you mentioned Keating. Keating was my local federal member. And in the days of when I joined the Labor Party in the 90s, the Labor Party would welcome you if you were social and economic conservative, certainly at that time. And I found over the years that there was less and less tolerance of people with good, strong economic and social conservative values. And in the last 5 years of my time in the Labor Party, I think someone like myself became ostracised. I'd often sit in a caucus, particularly in a shadow ministry, the New South Wales shadow ministry, where I would be on my own with common sense views. I knew it. And it became almost unbearable at the end to be part of a party, and I think Gary understands this, as does Warren, to be part of a party where common sense just wasn't part of the day-to-day thinking at all. And it got to a point for me personally where I found it just unbearable. I found that this party, the Labor Party, and it's really sad, you're seeing it with other major political parties as well, we know that, we're seeing it with the Liberal Party, but the dominance of the left, and you can see it now with the National Conference with the demands the left are making on our bow and the demands the left are making within the party structures, becomes such an untenable situation for Labor in governments that undoubtedly good policy decisions will be compromised because the left dominate the party structures. And that's what's happened here in New South Wales, as has the case federally.
Essentially what you're saying, I've heard this all the time, I want to put this to Warren. What people often say is, well, it's not me that's moved from left to right, it's the party that's moved from right to left. You know, you're the solid one in the centre and the party's just changed around you. Is that how you put it?
Yeah, I think it was Ronald Reagan actually said that he didn't leave the Democrat Party left him. And with me, my principles, my beliefs, and that hadn't really changed. What influenced me was and I say it in this incredible book here that you can get at a reasonable price at every bookstore, is my father was a very strong Labor man. He you know, after he come back from the Second World War. And so he had an influence on me, but my mother was a very strong Catholic and had very strong beliefs, and I grew up, you know, in the bush and then in Western Sydney. So he influenced me a lot, and then we had Hawke and Keating. I call myself a Hawke as a Prime Minister and Keating as the Treasurer. I don't think Keating was very successful as a Prime Minister. But that's what influenced me. So it was easy for me to join the Labor Party. In fact, you know, and I was such a charismatic, good-looking bloke that I got to be president of the party. But
and humble.
And humble. Yes, right. And so it was, and it was in those days, like you know, because we'd known each other for years. We're good mates in the Labor Party, and then it changed. You had this shift, and then by 2012, I remember sitting at home, and they email out you renewing your membership, and I looked at my wife and I said, I don't know if I can, you know, renew my membership because the party's changed and moved so far to the left. And so people like me, you know, you talk about common sense, economic conservatism, and you know, looking at the workers. And what also influenced me is in 2001 and 2004, people I went to school with and grew up with, they, you know, around in Reid, the electorate of Reid, Auburn and Granville, they had in their DNA since 1892 Labor, strong Labor people. These were tradies and truck drivers and factory workers and stuff like that. So I went to this barbecue in 2004. This is after Howard really smashed us and won the Senate and the lower house. And we had 20 people out at Penrith, and we had this barbecue. And at that barbecue, I realised I was the only one who voted Labor. These people were voting now Liberal. And I thought that was fascinating. So I sat and had a good talk to them. And so, and it is the problem that they said that the party doesn't recognise the worker anymore. They've forgotten the tradies, they've forgotten the factory workers, and they've moved on to the inner city and all those, you know, inner city teal type stuff. And I sat there and I thought about it, and that was true. And so in 2012, when I was going to renew my membership, my wife said to me, well, it's up to you, you decide what you want to do. And I sat there for about 5 seconds, and I just deleted it. And then I thought my politics was over. But then Tony Abbott, he rang me up and said, I heard you left the Labor Party, and he said, would you like to have a cup of tea with me? And I said, I don't know. I think I'm enjoying having been a private citizen. And then we had a conversation, then I went from there.
Gary, I could, if I wanted to, I could go and sit down and read Hansard and see what you were saying then when you were in Parliament for the Labor Party. Is there anything in there, if you were to read it, that you think you might say, well, yes, I have changed my mind on that?
Not a great deal. I thought that during that Hawke-Keating period, Warren's correct, Hawke as Prime Minister and Keating as Treasurer were the great combination, and they were rational. But there was only Peter Walsh and myself who were known as economic rationalists in caucus, even at that time, even though it was a fairly sensible caucus. So I wouldn't change any of the words then. Can I just throw in one example? And this is a very positive example that you have to keep arguing your corner. If you don't, you lose. So I'm going back to 1977 I witnessed a debate on uranium and the nuclear fuel cycle. We're having it today, right? And there was an old fella got up on the stage, a bunch of university students, and he
That old fella is not Vernon.
No, sorry, Vernon. It was...
One more chair.
Yeah, come in. It was... There you go.
We're having to save a bit of money this year. Here comes one. Well, thank you.
Your bum's bigger than mine.
Good on you. Anyway, long story short, the old fella talked about the risks inherent in mining coal, in mining it and in burning it. And for the first time, I understood that you had to compare risks. Coal and the number of deaths versus uranium and nuclear power generation. Now, there are moments in time when young ones, either in this audience or outside this place, will want to hear something really sensible. They are searching for it, they're searching for good ideas, and we're the ones who have to give them good ideas simply by having these sorts of forums. So I do mean that. You don't ever give up arguing what you truly think is real and rational and proper, because kids are hungry for it. The trouble is they're just not being fed it or told it at school or at university.
Vernon, Vernon, it's terrific to you joined us. Vernon, you and I are the only two people on this panel that have never been members of the Australian Labor Party. Although I will confess that in my youth, I was a member of the British Labor Party. And I'm happy to say we all make mistakes in life, but
Sure.
you were a Democrat. You were elected as a Democrat in the great state of Georgia. People would say that you've gone from, because you came over with Donald Trump, people would say you've gone from that far left to that far right. Is that true, or is it that the Democrats have moved?
You know what's interesting? I was born and reared in a conservative family. I'm a Southerner. You know, again, hard work, faith-based. The government doesn't owe you anything. Go out and do something with your life. And, you know, Democrats were conservative. So I woke up one day, I'm here, and the Democratic Party is back up there in the balcony. I didn't leave the party left me. And I just didn't identify with them anymore. And so here are two people running for president of the United States. One is Joe Biden, and the other is Donald J. Trump. And I heard Trump's message. Now, I saw Biden for the past 50 years. Biden had been in elected office, and the only thing he's ever run was his mouth. And when I looked at President Trump, businessman, he understood commerce. He understood how, you know, we can create jobs, get this economy going, how we can compete globally. And it just made sense. And when I came out for President Trump, the Democratic Party, I mean, it was like I was a tyrant. And they attacked me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I can't think for myself. And the biggest attack came from liberal whites and the liberal media. And Joe Biden said it best. You heard him say, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Well, I'm black as hell, and I sure didn't vote for him. you know? And so I just wanted to identify with someone who identified with my values and my principles. And I heard him talk about young people. Look, if we don't get to our young people, the left is getting to them in school, they get them to them in, whether it's public school or private school, they're getting to them on the ball fields. And so where are the young people in here? Where are my young people? Please stand up for a second, because every young person stand up in here. Yes. Let me tell you. There you go. Yeah, give them a big hand. And I want to thank those parents who brought them here too, because if we don't train and educate them, we've lost an entire generation. And that's the problem I have with the Democratic Party. They're just destroying the nuclear family.
Just sticking with you one moment, Vernon. Jason Riley, the columnist from the Wall Street Journal, was in Sydney recently. I had a long chat to him, and I've read Thomas Sowell on this subject. these are African American people on the Conservative side of politics that say they've suffered accusations that they've been behaving like whiteys because they're... Where does this come from, and how's that played out in your life?
Well, something like that was created in darkness and hatched in ignorance. It is just flat wrong. You know, we're people. We're all people, and education is so important. So, what is wrong with speaking standard English? What is wrong if you want to do something with your life? You want to do something constructive. You want to have an independent thought. You want to start a business. They want to stifle that. They want you to rely. They want to play mind games. They want to keep you on that plantation, that mental plantation. And if you come off, they will browbeat you like I don't know what. And they'll identify people in your community to browbeat you too. And that's why you see these liberal news stations. Oh, I don't know if you all saw that interview that I had on MSNBC and another one with CNN. They've never had me back on because when I finished with them, they were running like hell because I wasn't saying and carrying the narrative that I was supposed to, and they thought I was going to back down when I got on there because they will come at you. And so it's farce. It's just foolishness. It really is. And especially, they're afraid of Donald Trump is capturing so many more black voters now. He has got more black votes than going back, the Republican Party, than going back to Richard Nixon. And that's what the left is afraid of because they cannot survive without the black vote. And if they lost 20% of the black vote, it's over. A nail is in their coffin. They're dead in the water.
And just to follow up on it, you're right. You know, when you like my morals and my ethics and that would drive me as my foundation hasn't changed when I was president from the Labor Party. They've changed, and you get these stupid things. There's two things I'll tell you. One's a funny story, and the other one's not so funny. But it's well, I got a joke out of it. They're like Jacinta Price and myself. We get called puppets for white conservatives, as if Aboriginals can't think for themselves. It's like we just got to follow the lines. That, you know, and I sit there and go, well, you know what? Yous are all socialists and commos. Did you know that Marx was white? You know, good old Karl and Frederick Engels was white, and the other one was they got a photo of Prince William and Kate at their wedding. They cut their head off and they put me and Jacinta's head on there, you know, and then they had King and Queen of Coconut Island, and it went viral, right? So this is Colin, who's Jacinta's husband. We call him the coloniser. Mate, he takes all our good-looking women, you know, these white fellas, I tell you. Anyway, the coloniser. So he worked out that he found out that I was a Celtic supporter, you know, soccer team in Scotland, and he's a Scot. So he got this Guernsey, this Celtic Guernsey, and he put in Gaelic on the back. And I said, what's the Gaelic say? And he said, it says, King of the Coconuts. And so I took that, you know, it's like the migrant communities and the Italians and all that, they were called wogs as insults when they come to Australia. Well, now they sit there and go, we don't care. We're wogs, yeah. We're proud Australians and we work hard for Australia. So I did that. So I went up to the coffee shop just up the road from my place and sat there, and people said, oh, what's that in the back? And I said, that's a Gaelic. And they said, oh, right. And what's it say? And I said, I'm king of the coconuts. And then it opens it up for a story.
Tania, you obviously you don't have that same issue, as it were. But did you get the same reaction in the sense that you are a traitor to your class because you've left this party of, you know, working people and you've moved over to the party of One Nation, which in their minds, of course, is, you know, way off past Genghis Khan?
Well, can I just say it's interesting. As I was campaigning earlier in the year, the amount of people I met that now vote One Nation but previously voted for the Labor Party was very surprising. Quite a high number. And I think what's happened over time is as the major political parties, like the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, in their approach to go so far left, they've, as Warren has said, the working class and the workers and the mums and dads have reached a point where they're looking for other alternatives. And so for me, because I've always represented the area of southwest Sydney, Western Sydney, I come from a conservative European Christian background, I haven't changed. When I first walked into the Labor Party in the 90s, people patted me on the back for being a right-winger. By the time I left, they virtually booted me out. They had no room for anyone like me and the views that I had. So, and I found that as I talked to a lot of people out there across Sydney and regional New South Wales, I felt that people actually were really happy that I made that decision. I didn't really, within the Labor Party, of course, I've been ostracised, there's no question about that. In fact, it's funny, in New South Wales Parliament, as I resumed back in May this year, people were clearly told within the Labor Party not to talk to me, okay? So I'd go into a lift and there'd be some former Labor colleagues who were once my friends, and they would look at the door, okay? They would look away from me. It was that obvious. No hello, no how are you, not even a little bit of a smile, okay? It was just pathetic, and you could see they were instructed, okay, like robots, not to talk to me. But I couldn't care less, I've got to be honest with you. So for me, I've been really grateful for the opportunity and the journey. But I do want to say a couple of quick things, and it's back on what you mentioned, Warren, when you made that decision, I think it was 2012, when you didn't want to renew the party membership. Somewhere in that 2010 to 2012, the Labor Party really went far left, okay? I would have said maybe 15, 20 years ago it wasn't that bad, but in that time frame, that sort of post-Rudd, Gillard, particularly when Gillard was there was a period there where the left were really dominating or started to dominate the conferences and the agenda, okay? And that's when you started to see a big change in where the Labor Party was heading. I just want to quote something from back in 2010, if you don't mind. And I want to see if people can remember who said this, and you'd be surprised that they actually said this. So I'm going to read the quote, okay? And if anyone remembers, let me know who said this. But it's a Labor politician, okay? I'll give you a clue, a federal Labor politician. On the issue of marriage, I think the reality is there is a cultural, religious, historical view around that which we have to respect. Thank you. That's Penny Wong. The party's position is very clear that this is an institution that is between a man and a woman. Can you believe that comment was made only 13 years ago?
Look,
okay? It's unbelievable to think where if you said that now, any politician in Australia, if they were to say that now, they would be pillared for hate speech, right? They wouldn't be allowed to stay in the front bench. So it just tells you how far left the Labor Party has gone in the last decade.
Now we've run out of time. We're eating into Alan Jones's time, so I want a quick...
He'll forgive us, Alan.
I'm sure. Yes. Alan, forgiveness is not one of Alan's strong suits, but anyway. Great man that he is.
Well, he'll forgive me.
One sentence from each of you. If there's anybody in here, any Labor Party members in here, I doubt it, but more likely watching on the live stream anywhere in the country, and they're thinking of transitioning. One sentence of advice from each of you.
Don't.
I meant politically, of course.
Oh, sorry. There are drugs. Look, just keep this in mind. Environmentalists used to be reasonably sensible until they discovered global warming and energy. They are destroying our energy system and they must be stopped.
I think it's important for people to remember how hypocritical many of the left are. And let's look at Albanese and his current jet plane bill. Something like $4 million, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Huge bill between he and his ministers. And if that's not a wake-up call for people in the Labor Party or people who support Labor, they need to understand that this idea that the Labor Party professes that they care about the environment when it suits them, okay? They care about the environment when it suits them only. They're okay to go in the plane. They're okay to jump in and, in their cars. But they want you to cut, to pay for it. They want you to transition to this renewable sort of energy in an unreasonable fashion, knowing that it's going to cost jobs and opportunities and skills and set us backward in Australia. Australia is a country rich in natural resources, okay? And the fact that the Labor Party and the left with the Greens are pushing to demonise the natural resources industry tells you all you need to know, because they're hypocrites. They're still happy to go in those planes and happy to jump in the cars, happy to put petrol out there and spend it, but they want you, the taxpayer, to pay for it. That's the biggest issue, okay? They want the taxpayer to pay for their lifestyles.
Warren?
The Labor Party, when I was a young man, and why my father was a strong supporter of them, was they were for family values. They were for free speech, and they fought for free speech. They fought for all these values and that. You know, whoever thought, I would never have thought that people would talk about free speech, which they do today, the left does, the Labor Party does, as if it's brought up by a bunch of fascists. Free speech is now considered a fascist thing, a Nazi thing. Now, I say to the people who are out there in the Labor Party, get out of there quick. Get out of there real quick. Do not collect the $200 as you go out the door, just go. And actually, stand up for the values that's built this great nation, and they are the liberal democracy values of free speech, free enterprise, the rule of law, and people putting their shoulder to the grindstone and making this country a better country.
Thank you all for having me over here. I'm just humbled to be here. I'm so inspired and motivated to see the energy and the commitment in this room. I was born and reared on a farm. I mentioned that earlier. And my parents taught me, even at an early age, stand up for what you believe in. Even if you're the only one that believes that, if that's what you believe in, stand up for it. I look at where our country is going now. We used to be a beacon of light. And we're still a great country. And I love my country, so I'm not beating my country up. But you look at Joe Biden, our president, there was just a few years ago, he was against a man marrying a man or a woman marrying a woman. Now he's leading the charge on that. They're leading the charge on children being introduced to all these genders and children having transgender operations. Look, when I was a kid, I told someone earlier, I wanted to be a dinosaur. And I acted like a dinosaur. But my parents grabbed me right here and said, you're not going to stay outside overnight. You're going to come in this house, and you're not a dinosaur. But kids think things, so we've gone so crazy far. Be what you want. You can be a butterfly if you want to be. I don't care. The fact of it is, don't target children. Don't target children. In America, you have to be 18 years old to vote and 21 to buy a pack of cigarettes. And you're going to say a 5 or 6-year-old can have irreversible transgender operations? What do you know at 5 and 6 and 7? I just realized how many toes and fingers I had when I got about 12, 13, 14. I mean, and it's irreversible. So I'm so into protecting our children. Let them do what they want to do when they get a certain age, when they understand life. And so as you fight your battles over here, we're fighting our battles over there. And if it happens in America, it can happen anywhere, because a lot of our stuff from America is seeping around the world. Because the social media, you put it up there now, you see it. And so thank you all, the panelists. I've learned so much from you all, and I'm just humbled to be here. Thank you all so much to the people that are here
Thank
today.
you. Please put your hands together to our wonderful panel. Vernon Jones, Warren Mundine, Tania Mihailuk, and Gary Johns.